The walk back through the cave was a bit more peaceful this time, though that wouldn't last long. His grandfather would be waiting, and Jack's test results weren't going to go over too well. Outside, the brightly setting sun blinded him for a moment. He raised a hand up to block it, as the green trees of summer weren't helping too much in that regard. He realized that it wouldn't be much longer before the trees picked themselves up and migrated to the warmer south, leaving their dead, leafless brothers behind. Lucky trees. Between those trees, an old man tapped his foot impatiently. Jack's grandfather was covered in 3 or 4 layers of different colored clothing, while his long white beard poked out from his shirt in several places. None of that was out of the ordinary, though. The tiny golden girl sitting on his grandfather's shoulder, however, was a bit unusual. The girl's wings shimmered in the sunlight as she flapped them absently. "Hi, Grandpa," Jack said, hoping a smile would help hide his failure. "New friend?" His grandfather snorted, then gently offered his palm to the fairy on his shoulder. The creature daintily stepped into it, smiling shyly up at Jack as his grandfather walked over. "Just caught this bully robot hunting some of these things," the old man said. "The other 3 flew off when I rescued them, but this one seems to have a thing for me." Before he could even finish speaking, though, the fairy jumped out of his hand and flew over to Jack. She landed on his head, settled herself into his hair, and let out a contented sigh. "Or not," his grandfather said with a grunt. "How did the test go?" Jack took a deep breath, then blew it out without a word. "Right," his grandfather said, nodding. "Can't say I'm surprised. What was the problem this time?" Jack turned red. "I kinda let the princess die," his grandfather groaned. "You do realize that is not a good thing, right?" the old man asked. So I'm told, Jack said. His grandfather patted him on the shoulder. "You'll save it next time. Until then, you'll practice every minute that you're not working in the fields." And there it was, pretty much the worst punishment his grandfather could have laid down. The last thing Jack wanted to do was to practice more princess rescuing. The whole thing was just so useless. "It's not useless," his grandfather said, apparently reading his mind. "You think I'm going to let my only grandson stay a farmer for the rest of his life? That's a job for kids too young or adults too old to go out on a proper adventure. Now, let's get back to the cottage. There's a chill in the air. You do realize it's the middle of the summer, right?" Jack asked as they started home. "I'm pretty sure any chill is just in your head." That earned Jack a whack on the head from his grandfather's cane. "I fought an ice giant, you little idiot," the old man snapped. "The monster froze my bones to their very core, and they've never properly healed. Usually it's worse when I'm around the truly stupid." He gave Jack a dark look. "You see where I'm going with this." "I'll start a fire when we get home," Jack said with a sigh. On the top of his head, the fairy made herself a little nest, tugging some of his hair in the process. Unlike this one, Most fairies were shy, scared of humans for a good reason. Their wings sold pretty well to wizards and witches for their magic. The practice was horribly cruel, but that didn't stop some of the village boys from hunting the little fairies. "A fire's a start," the old man said, "and then tomorrow we'll go over my adventuring lessons again." Jack gritted his teeth. "Grandpa, I'm not going to waste my time anymore," he shouted. "I'm not you, and I'm definitely not my father. What's the point anyway? There aren't any unmarried princesses left. And how would you know?" his grandfather shouted back. "You're not even looking. If you go looking for adventure, it will find you. At least if you had the brains nature gave your little fairy friend. The one who's scratching her head with her foot, I might add." "If adventure's gonna find me," Jack growled angrily, "it can find me right here. If you're right, it shouldn't matter where I am. I should be able to just stick out my arms and have a princess fall right into them." He stuck out his arms to highlight how stupid his grandfather's argument was. Above him, a circle of blue fire exploded open in the middle of the air. Out of the middle of the flaming circle, a person fell to the ground less than a foot from Jack's outstretched arms. For a second, both Jack and his grandfather were too shocked to say anything. As usual, though, his grandfather recovered first. "You really need to work on your aim, boy," the old man said. Jack quickly ran forward to see if the person, a girl, was hurt. She was lying on her stomach, so Jack quickly turned her over. Sighing in relief, he saw she was still breathing. He looked her over, trying to figure out if she'd broken anything, but she seemed okay. That was other than her odd appearance. The strangest thing had to be the streak of startlingly blue playing through the girl's dirty blonde hair. That couldn't have been natural. Some sort of magic had to be involved. Not that her clothing was normal either. Her pants were dark blue, worn through in some places, but almost new in others. Her black shirt was a much thinner material than her pants, and barely had any sleeves. And then Jack saw something that made him gasp in surprise. "What?" his grandfather asked, creeping up behind Jack to look. "Is it dead?" The old man noticed what Jack had seen. He leapt into the air, almost giddy with excitement. "Jack, my boy!" he shouted. "You've done it! You found one!" Jack shook his head, still staring at the girl. She couldn't be. Could she? He read the words on her shirt again, out loud this time. Punk Princess. This girl was a princess? And where exactly was Punk?